Wednesday edition of the show. We are live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, where you can watch the show live. 973 ESPN. You see, we are black to the black shirt today. I only wore the red shirt for one day, folks. We're back to black today here in Josh's world. You're on GameNight on 97.3 ESPN. Text board is open as well, 609-403-0973. You want to get on the conversation. Also, comment on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter as you are watching the show here on 97.3 ESPN social media platforms. We're going to get more into the Eagles situation coming up with Dave Weinberg coming up at 6:20 p.m. You know, Dave covered the Eagles the entire Jeffrey Lurie era. And now, what are the Eagles going to do at quarterback? Well, Dave Weinberg wrote an article on 973ESPN.com with an idea, and it involves Nick Foles. You want to tune in to find out what Dave thinks about what the Eagles should do moving forward, coming up at 6:20 tonight. I'll give you my thoughts on the latest on the Eagles situation with the quarterback. But before I go anywhere else, can we talk about the Sixers last night? Can we please talk about the Sixers last night? Now, I know some of you couldn't stay up. Maybe you had work. Maybe you were just, someone who doesn't stay up late. But I was stuck on that game all night. I mean, I was invested. I was there. And I'm watching this game and I'm thinking, this game is playing out just like Jason Blevins told me. Because Jason Blevins was on the show last night, our 97.3 Sixers beat reporter. And he said, look, the Sixers are going to have trouble in the first half with the Kings. And they did. The Kings went out there with a speed of the game, a level of ferocity, a intensity, a pace of play that took the Sixers a while to kind of adjust to and figure it out. And you think about it, when you look at the situation with the Sixers, in the past, I don't know if they would have won that game, but they found a way to get to the fourth quarter where they dominated them in the fourth quarter. They took control of the game and they sent the Kings home to cry about it. The 76ers had 59 rebounds last night. 59! They outscored the Kings in the fourth quarter by almost double digits. And yet, what happened? The Kings were a scrappy team. They stayed in it, and it was a lot of fun to watch. And I think that, if anything else, that's where we are with the Sixers. They're a fun team to watch again. And I love that. I love the fact that this team, win or lose, they're giving you an entertaining product. Because, as Mike Gill has mentioned, last year, this team was miserable at watch the times. There were moments of time, hey, my God, you don't see him on the video walking behind me. There were times last year that this team was completely just not aesthetically pleasing. But last night was aesthetically pleasing. You saw Joel Embiid going out there and doing his thing. You saw a guy, for example, like Ben Simmons making behind the back no-look passes. You saw this team go out there and go blow for blow with a young team with nothing to lose. And to me, that was exciting. It was exciting to watch the 76ers go out there and have a good game. And the icing on the cake was that they won the game. And, at least there's a team in Philadelphia that's fun to watch. Because I feel like we all suffered through the Eagles season, right? We all had to bite our lip and be punched in the face by the misery of the Eagles season. The Flyers are on a COVID break right now because of contact tracing. So it's not like I can sit here and be like, hey, I'm looking forward to the Flyers. No, don't have that. Phillies are still a couple weeks away from spring training, as you heard Frank Close say just about a half hour ago on the Sports Bash. He said, look, we're still figuring out the details when it comes to the Phillies. So if I'm looking at the Sixers, I at least need the Sixers to give me an entertaining product. And guess what? They gave me an entertaining product last night. That was fun. They were intense. It was interesting, and I enjoyed it. Again, the text board is open, 609-403-0973. You can watch the show on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. We'll get to your comments in just a moment here on 97.3 ESPN. Don't forget, Sixers back in action tomorrow night. They are in Portland. Do they get a little revenge tomorrow night? Well, tune in. Tom McGinnis on the call right here on your home for Sixers basketball, 97.3 ESPN. And one more note on the Sixers. I think last night also showed you the importance of Matisse Thybulle. I know people are so hasty to want to make a trade. You know, I say this often, but I'll say it again. I know I'm a broken record. How many times are we going to treat the real world like video games? It's not a video game. You can't just trade a guy for a better player and you're automatically better. This team has chemistry right now, and I'd be very cautious about who I take off of this roster. If you want to trade Ferguson and Mike Scott and a draft pick for a viable guy to come off the bench or another guy to maybe swap into the starting lineup, I'm cool with that. But don't tell me you want to trade Matisse Thybulle or any of these other guys. I think there's a point in time where you have to value chemistry. You have to value what the players are giving you. Thybulle gave you great defense last night. You saw a team that was fluid with no matter who was on the court. I think Dwight Howard and Thybulle and all these guys, they have roles. So if you're going to make a trade, if you're going to make a move, don't be so hasty to give up on somebody. Don't be so hasty to be like, hey, man, I made this trade on 2K. No. 2K don't factor in chemistry. The real world factors in chemistry. And I saw a team that trusted each other last night to get back into that game. Again, coming up for a Hump Day Wednesday edition of Game Night here on 97.3 ESPN. Dave Weinberg will join us coming up in about 12 minutes from now, because we got to get to this Eagles stuff. And Paul, I see you on Facebook. I'll get to your comment in just a moment. Listen, the Eagles, as reports are out there that teams are a little frustrated with them. They're getting impatient. And you know what? Let them be impatient. You know why? I don't want Howie Roseman trading Carson Wentz for a bag of basketballs or footballs or whatever. What was that guy? There's some guy who comments on the Sports Bash about every couple of months that they need to trade Ben Simmons for a bag of basketballs. Well, I don't want to trade Carson Wentz for a bag of footballs, a couple of second-round picks. I want this organization to get maximum value out of this player. I don't want a cheap trade to get Carson Wentz here. I want maximum value. And in order for me to get maximum value, I am not going to make a hasty trade unless I'm blown away. We all know, whether we want to admit it or not, the Rams overpaid for Matthew Stafford. Matthew Stafford has never won a playoff game. Matthew Stafford's been in the league for 10 years. He has gaudy stats. He's a phenomenal talent, but they gave up multiple first-round picks, a third-round pick, and Jared Goff in a salary dump for Matthew Stafford. That's a lot. Now, according to reports, the Eagles want a similar package for Wentz. And I don't mind them asking for it. There's nothing wrong with asking for the most you can get and then ending up with a little less. If the Eagles are going to teams and say, we want 2 first-round picks, and they walk away with 1 first-round pick, are you really going to be upset about it? Come on. Seriously. Howie Roseman is trying to do his job. And I know a lot of you out there hate Howie Roseman, but let the man do his job, and then let's judge him after the fact. Let's judge Howie Roseman after he shows us whether he can get the job done or not. He traded Sam Bradford for a first-round pick. This is a man who has shown you he can get value. Remember, he traded up the second overall to get Wentz in the first place. He dumped Byron Maxwell's abomination contract. Remember that? I want to see what Howie Roseman does before I complain that Howie Roseman hasn't made a trade yet. Which gets me to Paul Westcott's comment, question, I should say, over on Facebook. Paul's watching on Facebook at 97.3 ESPN. So Chicago is apparently getting impatient with how the Eagles' asking prices way too high? Should the Eagles take what they can get or continue to prolong the process? I say neither. You never take what you can get. Okay, you're not a car salesman. You're not hoping that somebody buys a car so you can hit your quota for the month. No. This is as Jeffrey Lurie, the owner of the Eagles, referred to Carson Wentz a month ago. He called him an asset. So you don't want to give up an asset for just anything. You don't want to just, give it away. You don't want to just hand it away. You don't want to just be like, oh, yeah, whatever. Just get rid of him. No. He still has value. He is an asset. I want Carson Wentz traded for something legitimate. Now, we don't really know if they're asking for too much. That could just be the report. There could be somebody in Chicago who's the person putting out that report. Think about that. What if someone in Chicago is annoyed that the Eagles are saying to Chicago, this is what the Colts are offering. Will you match it? And then Chicago put out a report saying, Eagles asking price is too high. We're going to cry about it. Very possible. We forget those things sometimes. We forget that the source of the story sometimes has a huge impact on the fleshing out of that story. Now, Paul, you ask another question I think is very interesting. Because you ask about Chicago getting impatient. We've seen quarterbacks traded off seasons before, and teams walk away with better than we thought returns. Stafford being one of them. Remember when the Texans dumped Brock Osweiler on the Browns? Well, if you didn't dump Brock Osweiler on the Browns, you wouldn't have had the cap room to make a playoff team that eventually, with Deshaun Watson, went to the postseason a couple years later. See, sometimes it's not just about the immediate return and value. Sometimes it's about the long term. And Paul, listen, let Chicago get impatient. If Chicago really wants Carson Wentz, then the Eagles' asking price wouldn't be too high. Ryan Pace, the GM, who's on the hot seat in Chicago, overspent to trade up one stinking draft spot to get Mitch Trubisky. I think Howie's trying to fleece him. I think Howie's looking at Ryan Pace the same way that Kevin Costner in draft day looked at the Jaguars GM and said, are you desperate enough to make a deal with me to make yourself look better? I think Howie Roseman is banking on that either Ballard is going to come through with the right deal, Pace is going to overpay, or another team is going to come in last minute and steal the show. That's what I think Howie Roseman is really waiting for. Because when you think about the situation with the Eagles and everything that we're watching right now, think about it. Carson Wentz was a second overall pick. Carson Wentz, before last year, had 3 straight seasons of only 7 interceptions. Carson Wentz is still in his 20s. There's so many positives for Wentz. There's not a lot of negatives with Wentz. So as a result, get what you can get for him. Don't sit there and be like, oh, I'm just going to give him away for anything. No, you got to go get the best option, best opportunity you can get. Whether it's from the Bears, whether it's from the Colts, whether it's a 3-team trade with the Texans. I don't know what it is, but you got to find them. 49ers. I know Mike Gills mentioned the Broncos. Whoever it is. I don't know who it is, but whoever it is. Heck, what about a 3-team trade with the 49ers and the Vikings? Give Kyle Shanahan his buddy Kirk Cousins back. Send Wentz to Minnesota so he's near North Dakota. And he gets some draft picks in return. Whatever the deal is, I just want it to be substantive. Paul, appreciate you watching and listening to the show. Paul's watching on Facebook. You can watch the show as well on YouTube and Twitter at 973 ESPN. Josh Hennig here on Game Night on 973 ESPN. We are live here in the Matt Black Kia studios. Matt Black Kia wants to get you approved today. That's Matt Black Kia in the Black Horse Pike in Egg Harbor Township. You can visit them online at mattblackkia.com. Dave Weinberg, veteran Eagles writer, will join us next with his perspective on the latest on the Eagles and Carson Wentz. And what does Nick Foles have to do with all this? We'll get that next. Right here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN FM. Streaming live on the 97.3 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Seattle City. And video stream live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Just follow 973 ESPN.
It's Sixers basketball tomorrow on 97.3 ESPN with the voice of the 76ers, Tom McGinnis, calling all the exciting play-by-play action.
Simmons on the drive. Simmons into the lane. Simmons to the corner. Danny Green open. 3-ball up. Got it. Triple good.
The Sixers are in Portland to face the Blazers tomorrow. Coverage begins at 10 p.m. Philadelphia 76ers basketball on your radio home of the Sixers in South Jersey. 97.3 ESPN. And the free mobile app.
JoshHennig here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN. We'll get back to your text in just a minute, 609-403-0973. Of course, we are streaming live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. You can watch the show live in the Matt Black Kia Studios here on 97.3 ESPN. but joining us right now on the Boardwalk Out of Hotline to get more into this stuff with the Philadelphia Eagles. It is a Weinberg Wednesday. That means Dave Weinberg joins us as he always does. Check out his latest extra point column at 973ESPN.com about Nick Foles. Dave, how you doing today?
I'm doing well, Josh. Got my first vaccine today at Atlantic City Convention Center. So all is good.
And you're not dead, so we know you're fine. So it's all good.
Yeah, I got to give a big shout out to the National Guard and the nurses and everybody and the staff at the convention center. I mean, it's a tremendously easy process. They're very professional, very quick, very efficient. It was I was in and out in 30 minutes.
So what you're saying is you are endorsing the process.
Absolutely, yes, highly recommend it.
So Dave, I didn't have you come on about the vaccine, but we appreciate the information. Listen, this Eagle situation just doesn't seem to go away. I mean, you've covered this team since the entire Jeffrey Lurie era, and it seems like the Eagles always find these ways to go out there and steal the headlines. And the latest is that everyone's expectation is that Carson Wentz is getting traded. And I like one of the things that you said in your extra point column, because I agree with you 100% about this. If this is where he is and this is what was going on, then just go. Just get out of here. Because at some point, you can't be the quarterback of the Philadelphia Eagles and be that kind of individual and have this kind of mess following you around.
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely worn out his welcome, I think, to this point. I mean, you can't, like you said, you can't win the team back, I don't think, by behaving the way he's behaved or the lack thereof. I mean, he hasn't really explained anything yet, but yeah, it seems pretty clear that he wants out. I think it's best for all parties involved if they just try to find a team willing to take him and go on from there.
I asked the question earlier, and I'll ask you as well. You know, there's reports out there that, you know, teams are getting impatient waiting for the Eagles, and that, you know, the Bears believe that the asking price is too high. And I kind of wonder now, is that report coming from the Bears side, or is that coming from somebody else? You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, it seems like the Eagles, they don't have any leverage in this. I mean, they can ask for, you know, multiple first round picks and players or what have you, but you know, no other team has to, you know, meet that asking price. I mean, they're kind of at the beck and call of the rest of the NFL. And as I wrote, I think the Bears would be the best option. I mean, I guess give the Eagles a first round pick and bring Nick Foles back, and then let Carson see if he can make it in Chicago.
Now, I want people to read the full article so they get the full effect of what you said, but I do want to give a little clarity here. You're not asking for Nick Foles to come back, be the starter. You want Nick Foles to come back because you feel like he'd be the best person to help Hurts. Correct.
Yeah. I mean, people might misconstrue that as, you know, I am a big Nick Foles guy, but no, this is in my view, Jalen Hurts is the starter, and you bring in Nick to be his backup. Just the same role that he had when he came in 2017 to back up Carson. The only reason he played was because Carson got hurt. The same thing here. You know, Jalen's going to have his growing pains. He's going to struggle a little bit, but that's no reason to. And I know the fan base is going to, you know, the first opportunity they're going to clamor for Nick. But no, you let Nick be the mentor to Jalen. He's been around the league for a long time. He knows different systems. He knows. I think he's that veteran guy, the way McCown was for Wentz last year, that I think it'd be the perfect fit, to be honest with you.
Yeah, the guy that I had been thinking of as long as they got rid of Wentz to bring in here personally was Ryan Fitzpatrick, because of the kind of person he is and the personality he is. But when I read your article talking about Nick Foles, you started convincing me to Nick Foles, because I started thinking about it. I'm like, this guy's a willing teammate. He's a good human being. He understands the city. He's a guy who gets along with people. He's not a malcontent. And I'm starting to think now, you know, Dave, you got something going here. You're making a lot of sense for me here, because at the end of the day, you need the backup to Jalen Hurts, not be some guy that's just wet around the ears. You need somebody coming in here who understands the layers that come with being the Eagles quarterback. Yeah,
there's it's not just another city. It's just not another team. You have to be able to, it takes a certain kind of person to to play here. You got to have thick skin. You have to be a willing teammate. Like I mentioned, there's and that's something I don't think Carson it just doesn't seem like he was very comfortable at that role. I don't know if it's because we talked about this before. I don't know if it was because of his roots, being in North Dakota, being not in the media spotlight every day. I mean, how many people cover North Dakota State? I mean, 1, 2, maybe. So yeah, he just never seemed like he was comfortable in the spotlight. And Nick has been there. Obviously, he knows what's expected if it's called upon. But he's also content to stay back in the background and help Jalen whenever possible.
Dave Weinberg joining us here on the Boardwalk Kind of Hotline here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN. Follow him on Twitter at Dave Weinberg19. Check out his latest extra point column over at 97.3 ESPN.com, getting fully into the Eagles quarterback situation. I want to follow up what you said, though, about Wentz, and that is, and anybody who's listened to me for long enough knows that when he was coming out of college, when he was drafted by the Eagles, I was a Wentz guy. I was fully on board with the Wentz experience. But this year proved to me that I have no interest in him being the Eagles quarterback, because you were talking about how, whatever it was that caused him to turn into the guy that he is. To me, I just think that Wentz has turned into an individual who is a byproduct of the modern age, which is, I think he's a bit thin-skinned. I think that he doesn't want to admit when he's wrong. I think that he's got some sort of, soft pride, ego, vulnerable, insecure issue. And as far as I'm concerned, you can't be a successful NFL quarterback and not be able to take the bullets, because at the end of the day, any successful quarterback has to be able to handle failure and accept their mistakes and be able to work through things, even if it's not in Philadelphia.
Oh, absolutely. And I don't know that Carson was that bad, but it certainly, the impression that you get is that he wasn't able to handle all that. And you saw it as soon as back in like 2017, 2018, everybody's celebrating Nick's performance, and on the surface, Carson seemed pretty happy with it. But then you heard reports that he was chafing at Doug's suggestion that he run some of the plays that Nick ran. He didn't want anything to do with that. And you're right, he hasn't been very, receptive to criticism. That was part of the reason why Press Taylor and Doug Peterson are out of here, I guess. I'm sorry, not Press Taylor, but Mike Rowe and Doug Peterson. He just didn't. He didn't take to those guys, and he kind of walked all over Press, from what I understand. He wasn't able to. And you need a tough coach there. You need somebody who's going to read him the riot act when they need to get in his face when you need to. And a good quarterback will take that criticism and learn from it. But I don't know that Carson's able to do that.
So moving forward, now that the idea is that Carson Wentz is not going to be here anymore, whatever day that is, whether it's tonight, tomorrow, next week, the Eagles' next item of business for a lot of people in their minds would be the 6th overall pick. Now, the latest mock draft by Todd McShay came out today and said Jamar Chase. All right. Other people are out there mocking that it should be Devonta Smith. And my first question, Dave, is, but should it be a wide receiver? Because the guy that I'm thoroughly convinced on is you can't pass up a blue chip player. And while Chase and Smith are phenomenal, and so Waddle as well. Waddle is a phenomenal talent as well. I think that you got to shore up the secondary, because I just watched the Super Bowl, Dave, where, Tom Brady won the MVP, but Todd Bowles in that Bucs defense put Patrick Mahomes on lockdown and embarrassed Andy Reid. So I would love to see a cornerback here, Dave. What do you think?
Yeah, we've talked about this before. I'm a big Patrick Surtain guy, and he would be my pick. I'm sure he'd be your pick too. You need a lockdown corner to go with Darius Slay, and that would be the perfect choice. I mean, this isn't, like we've said before, this is an offensive-driven league, and people are going to go for the so-called marquee name, the guy who's going to, score the touchdowns or whatever. But you also need the guy who's going to prevent the other team from scoring, and I think Surtain does that. They have a big hole in the secondary, and I think he'd be the perfect fit. I mean, you drafted Jalen Reagor. Hopefully he's going to pan out, and you got some other guys that can maybe fill in. You can also get a wide receiver later in the draft too. That'll hopefully be able to contribute. Although Howie hasn't the best track record when it comes to picking wideouts. So, but yeah, I'm with you. I think Surtain should be the pick.
Speaking of the defense thing, I talked about this yesterday on the show, and I want to ask you about this. I feel like there's so many times that people are watching football games and they don't realize how important the defense is when it comes to winning games, because, it's the old saying, defense wins championships, offense sells tickets, and quarterbacks sell merchandise. It's the idea that people forget the basics of the game. And it's like, yeah, you can have Patrick Mahomes, but we saw an offensive line didn't block and it didn't matter. So to me, I feel like so many times we forget that teams win championships.
Yeah, and you saw Super Bowl is a perfect example. I mean, the way that, like you said, Brady got the MVP, but the Tampa defense is what won that game for them. I mean, there's going to come a point in the season where you're going to need your defense to shut someone down, and it just happened to be the Super Bowl. Whereas the Eagles, when they won the Super Bowl, the defense gave up 33 points and 500 and some yards. So you don't always need them to be the lockdown, but there are times during the year where you're going to need your offense to win, your defense to win, even your special teams. At some point, needs to come up with a big play, like you saw with Jake Elliott in that 62-yarder against the Giants in that season, the 2017 season. I mean, it could be argued that was the turning point of the whole year. So, you need a well-balanced team, and you definitely need a defense that's going to be able to shut teams down when they need to.
So that being said, Dave, what were some of your overall takeaways from Super Bowl LV on Sunday?
Well, I wish I'd have known that Streaker was going to come out on the field. I would have bet big money like he did.
You and a lot of people, right?
Yeah, really. I mean, he bet on himself and won like $375,000 or something like that. No, that's ridiculous.
Well, also don't forget that it was actually two guys around the field. There's one guy that was a decoy. The other guy around the field. So he used supposedly part of his winnings to bail out his friend from jail as well. So,
wow.
So technically he actually lost about, I think it was 10 grand or something on the overall net. So.
Oh, okay. I got you. But yeah, I mean, as far as the game, and everybody's complaining that it was boring, and I guess it was to a point, but I found it pretty entertaining. I would just love the fact that Tampa was able to come up with a scheme to shut down that dynamic Chiefs offense. I mean, everybody's assuming that they were going to, put up 30, 40, including me, because I bet the Bucks and the over. And so, I lost obviously, but, I never would have thought that you would keep a Kansas City offense from scoring a touchdown and holding them to 3 field goals. That's just outrageous.
I'm glad you said that, Dave, because to me, that was my biggest word for that game was shocking. I was shocked that Todd Bowles literally took Andy Reid's lunch, ate it, then went back to him, told him to give him his dinner, ate it. He came back, he told him to give him his house keys, and he went back to his house and slept in his bed. Like, it was incredible to me that for as the long history of Andy Reid in this league of being a play caller, an offensive mind, and Eric Bieniemy, and this great coaching staff, and it was like they made no adjustments at all. And Todd Bowles was just like, no matter what they did, I have a move for that.
Yeah, and I hate to say it, but Eagles fans should know full well that Andy doesn't always come up big in big games. I mean, he did last year.
Shocking statement by you, Dave. Shocking statement.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, Kansas City fans, and I saw other people, complaining about the refs, and they were, Kansas City's defense was getting called for stupid penalties. You scored 9 points. I don't want to hear you complain. You weren't going to win that game anyway, so forget about it.
So now, after that game is won, I said this on my show on Saturday about this game was going to change the history for a lot of people. So how does your view of people like, for example, Bruce Arians and Todd Bowles and, those kind of guys, we all know Brady. His career is cemented. Nobody was questioning that. But to me, this is a huge deal for a guy like Arians, who was kind of always viewed a certain way. And now he's got that chip on his shelf instead of the chip on his shoulder.
Yeah, I mean, I've always been a big Bruce guy, dating back to his Temple days, as a matter of fact. And, always honest, forthcoming, hard worker. And it's nice to see, guys like that get rewarded for all the effort that he put into the game. I mean, he's been around for a long time, and it's nice to see him finally get that championship. And Todd Bowles, I mean, you would have to think that he should be getting a head coaching opportunity here after that. I mean, he had a chance with the Jets, didn't go so well, but that doesn't mean that he won't be able to succeed in the next opportunity that he gets. I saw something on TV today where the league was suggesting that teams not be allowed to hire coaches until after the Super Bowl, so that coordinators will get more of a realistic shot, like Byron Leftwich and Todd Bowles. And I mean, I can see the argument both ways. Where if you're Jacksonville and you got your sights set on Urban Meyer, you shouldn't have to wait till after the Super Bowl. But I guess you could just. I think it's not a bad idea because it seems like those guys are getting left out in the cold because their teams are so good.
Yeah, I can't blame Todd Bowles for the fact that the Jets have had, 4 GMs in the last 10 years, and he happened to be in the middle of a GM change himself. I mean, you're really going to blame that. That's like people saying that, Bill Belichick didn't win anything with the Browns. Well, they're the Browns, for goodness sake. Like, I'm not saying that Todd Bowles is going to be Belichick, but I just feel like we're so quick to dismiss people sometimes without having some context for it.
Oh, sure. I mean, everybody deserves another opportunity, and I think Todd was one of those guys. I got to know him a little bit when he was at the Eagles. And he's one of those guys that definitely deserves another shot, I think.
Dave Weinberg joining us for a Weinberg Wednesday here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN. Follow him on Twitter at Dave Weinberg19. Check out his latest extra point column over at 97.3 ESPN.com about Nick Foles. Dave, I want to change it up from football and jump over to baseball for a moment because we're a couple of weeks away from baseball getting underway, at least in spring training form. And, the Phillies, now they're signing Matt Joyce. They're bringing in Brandon Kinsler. They're making some moves, but are they enough moves for them to be at least better than last year?
I think they can be better, but whether that translates into postseason success or even make the postseason, I'm not so sure. I think the Nationals are going to be very good again. I think the Braves and the Mets also. So, that's a really competitive division. I mean, you could probably just hand the Dodgers the World Series title anyway. But if you're going to have to go and play the season out, I guess the Phillies have a pretty good shot. I was really interested to see that thing on Twitter today about JT Realmuto and Christian Hennig eating like that Chipotle like 170 some days in a row or something like that. That's ridiculous.
I don't know if I should be impressed or disgusted. I mean, I could never eat the same thing that many days. Like I could do maybe like 2 or 3 days, but like at some point, it's like I need something different, Dave.
Well, if you were going to pick one thing, could you pick one to eat that many days in a row?
That's a good question. I don't know. I mean, I am willing to eat chicken a lot. I don't mind eating chicken. So, maybe something associated with chicken, I could try to make work as a general principle, because I mean, people say to me, Dave, that my diet is pretty basic as is. So I'm not totally like, I'm not one of these people who's like out there trying to make like, veal or something on a daily basis or anything. But, if it's something chicken based, I could probably work with that. What about you?
Well, I answered grilled tuna, which I really enjoy. But the more I think about it, I think I could probably eat ice cream that many days in a row.
Okay. I don't know if that counts as a main course, but all right.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
We'll give you a little leniency there. I think like, for example, people, like people would say maybe like, I could have a beer every day, the rest of my life, or, you know what I mean?
I could have a margarita every day. That's for sure.
Right. Exactly. But so is there a substantive food that you could have every day?
Yeah, I think grilled tuna is. I'm a big seafood guy, being from Cape May, so if you just make it general like seafood, I could probably do that. I could switch that up every, tuna one day, shrimp the next day, whatever have you. I could go 170 days with that, easy.
There you go, Dave Weinberg settles on a food better than I did here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN. Join us on the Boardwalk Honda hotline. You can follow him at Dave Weinberg 19. Also check out his podcast, Tequila and Touchdowns with Dave Weinberg, his extra point columns at 97.3 ESPN.com. And as all guests, he appeared on the Boardwalk Honda hotline. Dave, always appreciate the time and the conversation. We'll catch you next week.
That was a lot of fun, Josh. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Josh Hennig here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN. Don't forget my FanDuel Sportsbook pick of the night still to come here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN. We'll get to your messages on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter watching the show. We'll get to your thoughts and the text board at 609-403-0973 here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN FM. The 97.3 ESPN mobile app. It's free thanks to First Bank of Seattle City. And video streaming on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Just follow 97.3 ESPN.
Wake up weekday mornings from 6 to 10 with Keyshawn, J. Will, and Zubin on 97.3 ESPN.
If you want the job, go take it. Go take it. Like, I need my quarterback to have that mentality. I feel like this is Jalen Hurts' team. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like you have to let Carson Wentz go somewhere else.
Keyshawn, J. Will, and Zubin. Weekday mornings at 6 on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app. Now, more Game Night with Josh Hennig on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app.
Josh Hennig here, live in the Maplex Kia Studios on 97.3 ESPN. We'll be getting you my FanDuel Sportsbook pick of the night, of course. My friends over at FanDuel got you covered everything all basketball season from the opening tip to the final buzzer. There are so many ways to bet with FanDuel Sportsbook, a range of betting options from money lines and spreads to over-unders, player props. Don't forget about the same game parlays, so you get a massive payout on a small Bet exclusively on FanDuel Sportsbook. Now's the perfect time to give FanDuel a shot. If you sign up today, FanDuel will let you place your first bet risk-free. That's right. It'll give you up to $1,000 back if you don't win. Download the FanDuel Sportsbook app and sign up with my promo code Hennig. That's HENNIG when you sign up with FanDuel Sportsbook. Must be 21 or to play. See full terms and conditions at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Dan, gambling problem. Go 1-800-GAMBLER. We'll get to your thoughts right now at 609-403-0973, plus your thoughts on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. We'll get to Dan EHT in just a moment, but I want to first get to Nick, who is watching on the YouTube stream. Now, Nick's not an Eagles fan, so he's got a very interesting perspective. Nick says, trading Wentz is a big mistake. I'm a Cowboys fan. I realize you guys, it says, I really hope you guys trade him. But in all honesty, it's a dumb move the Eagles do with no O-line, honestly, below par wide receiver core. First of all, Nick, thanks for chiming in, even though you're not an Eagles fan. And your opinion is not discounted because you're a Cowboys fan. But I have to strongly disagree with you. What has Wentz done that shows you that he should be kept? See, that's the problem with this conversation. All the people who are the Wentz fans, or people who are non-Eagle fans like you, Nick, who sit there and say that you don't think it's a good idea. First of all, the Eagles had a rough offensive line because they had 13 different offensive line combinations this year. 13. So that means you played without everyone on offensive line at some point this year. If your offensive line is 4 out of 5 healthy, you do have an offensive line. In fact, I would argue that the Eagles' fully healthy offensive line right now is better than the Cowboys, because without Travis Frederick and with a banged up Tyron Smith and Zach Martin, you guys are not the same. So the Eagles, if they come back with Mailata playing left tackle, who he played pretty well actually for the entire of the year. Brandon Brooks is healthy. You have Lane Johnson healthy. Jason Kelsey healthy. You got a pretty darn good offensive line. So I think that your perspective on the offensive line is skewed there. But I understand where you're coming with the quarterback, because you are in a situation in Dallas where the Cowboys may not give Dak Prescott a contract because Jerry Jones is being stubborn and Dak is just kind of waiting things out. But Dak is better than Wentz. I said it. There you go. Wentz is stubborn. He showed his chutzpah this year. He showed that it was more important for him to make big plays than it was for him to win games. So with that being said, I understand where you're coming from, but nah. I can't rock with you there. But Nick, I appreciate you chiming in. Let's get a text board message here at 609-403-0973. Dan EHT says, hey, what will happen first? Steph Curry misses a free throw. The Phillies start their season. I mean, I'm going to assume Steph misses a free throw at some point just because of the fact that, you know, it's so hard to be perfect from the offense, from the charity stripe in basketball. You know, making every free throw is one of the hardest things to do on earth. So, you know, I don't believe that you can make every free throw of every game all the time. I think he's going to miss one at some point. But I do think the Phillies start their season because baseball is going to learn from their mistakes from last year. Baseball is not going to make the same mistakes as last year. I'm not saying it's going to be a perfect year. I'm not saying there's not going to be delays or postponements or reshuffling of the schedule because of all these COVID protocols. But what I am saying is that baseball season will happen. There's too much money on the line. I told you all this last April, May, and June, when everybody was trying to tell you and trying to sell you a bill of goods that sports wasn't coming back. This is a $1 billion industry. Games will be played. Sports will be played. Whether it is the best product on the field or not, I can't promise you that. Dan from EHT, always a loyal listener to 97.3 ESPN. Get a comment here on the Facebook feed. Watching the show on Facebook, 97.3 ESPN. Jeff Bone and Pookie chimes says, I'm on the all cereal diet because it's delicious. So here's the thing. I do eat a lot of the same foods, Jeff, but I don't always eat them on the same days. Like pretty much my week, I'm either eating chicken or beef. I don't know if I could do the cereal diet only because I think I would get tired of it. Also, I'm not a huge, I like oatmeal, but I don't eat tons of cereal all the time. I do eat a lot of peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. I eat those pretty much almost every day. So I think it's a little bit different. It's a little different than cereal as a general principle. But Jeff, appreciate you watching and chiming in. Watching the show on Facebook is Jeff at 973 ESPN. We are streaming live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. You want to comment in as well, you can do so on the Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter feeds, or you can chime in at 609-403-0973 to get on the conversation. 609-403-0973. Interestingly enough, on the text board, another Cowboys fan is chiming in. So let's get this Cowboys fan up on the video feed for all of you guys to see. Now, here's the problem. His text here is a little long. If I can short, there we go. All right. See if I can. All right, I'm just going to read it here because it's not fitting on the screen here. Texture says, I'm also a Dallas fan, but I believe the Cowboys and Eagles should go in different directions. Dallas is alienating a good QB when they should be securing him. Philly needs to move on from a damaged relationship. Now, that's an interesting thought because, now, first of all, I like the fact that the Cowboys fan is being very rational. I always love when fans have a rational opinion. By the way, there's the full of the text. I just popped up on the screen for those watching on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Listen, I agree with you that they're in different situations. Dak Prescott arguably is no worse than a top 12 quarterback in this league. When he was on the field, the Cowboys were in every single game last year. As soon as he got off the field, the Cowboys had less than a 50-50 shot to win any game last year. So, yes, you need to lock him up. And the fact that the Cowboys are so intent on pinching pennies when it comes to a guy who makes that much of a difference. Because I said this yesterday, unless you are of a certain level of quarterback, I cannot put all my eggs in the quarterback basket. But if your name is Tom Brady, or your name is Aaron Rodgers, or your name is, guess what? Even Dak Prescott, Patrick Mahomes, Deshaun Watson, all of these guys are difference makers. Dak Prescott's not as good as Patrick Mahomes or Rodgers or Brady, but I don't think he's a huge drop-off. I actually don't think he's a drop-off at all from Deshaun Watson. So, to me, yeah, the Cowboys, they got to figure things out. And the Cowboys fan says, listen, man, Philly needs to move on. It's a damaged relationship. It's good phrasing by you, but Cowboys fan. At 609-403-0973 on the text board. Look at our FanDuel Sportsbook pick of the night before we run out of real estate here. Yet last night we went 1-1 and we got the over-under wrong, but we got Donovan Mitchell and his points right last night, so that was always fun. So 1-for-1 last night. So we're going to try to do better tonight. You've seen all the previews all day long about Trey versus Luka, the Mavs versus the Hawks on ESPN TV. I'm going to give you a reason to watch it now. The over-under is 231.5. I'm going to go with the over. Both of these teams have allowed not just 100 points, but no less than 107 points in any of their last 5 games. These teams don't play defense, folks, but they both score a lot of points. Give me the over 231. And you're looking for a little extra value in the same game parlay on FanDuel Sportsbook, you know Trae Young's going to go off tonight. So why not Trae Young to score 30 or more? It's plus 142. You're getting positive value on that. Those are your FanDuel Sportsbook picks for the night here on GameNight on 97.3 ESPN. I'm Josh Hennig. I'll catch you tomorrow.
Tomorrow on the NBA on ESPN Radio.
Floats it to the rim. Adebayo skies, grabs, and flushes.
Bam Adebayo and the Miami Heat begin a 7-game road trip in Houston against the Rockets.
Here comes Oladipo back the other way. Hold up, left wing three. Rattles it down again. best is here. The top's down. The top of the world, and I can't come down.
The Miami Heat and the Houston Rockets. It's the NBA on 97.3 ESPN. Coverage begins at 7 p.m.